Hey cool kids, you're back with Beat Motel. It's a solo show with me, Andrew, this week because Sam is off in Iceland hunting for Vikings or doing something or other. So for this episode, I'm going to do something slightly different. I'm going to talk about Wu-Tang and American Saga, specifically episodes or seasons 1 and 2, mainly because I only found out season 3 was available about 10 minutes ago, so I'm not going to cover that. So I discovered Wu-Tang and American Saga completely by accident, and I'll explain that in a moment, but to give you a bit of background, I've been into hip-hop a long time. First album I ever bought was Raising Hell by Run DMC, but I'm not really an expert. I've got good friends who can give me the details. They can explain the crossovers between, well, Wu-Tang and Gravediggers and Tribe Called Quest, and they know the history and the folklore, and I'm not that person. I came to Wu-Tang accidentally in a roundabout way when I was about 17 or 18. The first Gravediggers album came out and a friend lent it to me, and it blew my tiny mind sitting in a village in Suffolk. And then I didn't really explore much more. I kind of looked at when the next album came out, which I also loved. I had no idea there was a connection between Gravediggers and Wu-Tang, but in a very, very roundabout way, I eventually came around to the Wu-Tang Clan. I think Gravel Pit coming out was quite a big thing, but it shamefully took me until only a couple of years ago to actually listen to 36 Chambers by Wu-Tang. So if you're listening to this expecting a deep dive on the Wu-Tang Clan, I'm afraid you're not going to get it. This is very much about the Hulu series Wu-Tang and American Saga. So how did I find that? Well, a friend gave me I don't know if I should admit this or if anyone gives a shit, but a friend lent me their Disney Plus login or added me as a member of their family, or I don't know, it's on our telly and I can't remember how. And I was just casually flicking through and saw the words Wu-Tang pop up. Anyone who hasn't listened to this before, I'm in the UK, so Wu-Tang and American Saga was on Hulu in the States. In the UK it's available via Disney, which is just so strange. When I was telling some of my hip-hop friends about Wu-Tang and American Saga, they were saying, oh, how did you watch that? I was like, Disney. And they're like, what has happened to the world? Why are Wu-Tang on Disney? But they are. So I will watch any music documentary. So I went to fire it up and I realised, first of all, it's not a documentary. Now, it's based on RZA's one of his books or several of his books. And he is credited as a writer. And almost all of the Wu-Tang Clan members are credited as executive producers, so they've very much been involved. Now this gave me some concern at first, because we're looking here at a significantly expensive, well produced, very high concept in places rapumentary. I'm not sure what word to use there. And sometimes if the artists are strictly involved or very, very much a part of the creative process, I think it can be quite a negative thing. Give you an idea, there's a story, possibly apocryphal, about the reason the Queen biopic Bohemian Rhapsody took so long to come out, and that reason is that Queen were involved with it. So there's a rumour that originally Sacha Baron Cohen was going to play Freddie Mercury, and that would have been a thing to behold. He eventually noped out of the production, and wouldn't say why, but a rumour started going round. It's because as they were going through the scripting and sort of working out the tension and the pace of Bohemian Rhapsody, the members of Queen said, they got to the bit where they had to talk about Freddie Mercury's death. I mean, it's unavoidable. So Sacha Baron Cohen was like, right, okay, so Freddie is going to die at the end of the film. You know, that'll be the end of the film. And their attitude was, no, that will happen quite early, and the rest of the film will be about all the brilliant things that Queen has done since Freddie Mercury has died. And I think Sacha Baron Cohen was a bit kind of, I am not so sure about that. And then the other rumour was that he wanted to play Freddie Mercury as long as the character was portrayed as realistically as possible with regards to, drugs, sex, all that stuff. And Queen, the members of Queen, are very much not keen on that. So it was all rumour, could or could not be truth. But it means that when I started watching the Wu-Tang and American Saga, I'm just going to start saying the Wu-Tang thing. the Wu-Tang thing, I was thinking, well, I hope this isn't either A, sanitized, B, apologetic or smoothing over some of the more negative aspects of the Wu-Tang story, or C, a hagiography. I didn't want to watch this if it was going to be some sort of glorious, hey, aren't we great type thing. And I've seen that kind of angle before, and it's just shit. You don't want to start watching a biopic about a band or an artist and have them go from, oh yeah, I'm going to write some tunes, and wow, now I'm playing at Live Aid or whatever. That would be a time travel biopic, I guess, for a lot of bands. But you know what, with the Wu-Tang thing, an American Saga, that is not what you get. It's so not what you get. I really didn't know how to take the first few episodes. It starts with a drive-by shooting, and I'm not going to give anything away because I want you to watch this. Well, if you want to, I'm not recommending it as such, other than saying I thoroughly enjoyed it, and there's a mathematical chance you might, if we have similar tastes. So it starts with drive-by shooting between two of the main characters, what turns out to be two of the main characters, and immediately the person with the gun wants to offload it. Turns up at Bobby's house. I'm going to tell you that now because RZA, real name Bobby Diggs, played astonishingly by Ashton Sanders. He gets a knock on his basement door. A guy comes in. I need to hide this gun. This is so bad. The accent, you can't really do this with an Ipswich accent. Hello, Bobby. I need to hide this gun. No, it's something. I'm not even going to make an attempt on making it sound like I'm from New York. And Bobby takes it. Wow, that's hot. What have you done? Basically, and for some reason says, "Okay, I'll hide your gun." He's sort of mucking about with record decks and samplers and stuff while the lad with the gun comes in. And immediately I thought, this is possibly gonna lean too hard into the "hey, we're gangsters" thing. Starting with a drive-by shooting is pretty rich, but the rest of the episode, and I've got to say, not a lot of the rest of the series really, none of it really glorifies violence. There's nothing in here that makes you believe the people involved in the frequent violent acts in the first two seasons are doing it because they think it's cool. This is one of the things that really struck me, especially the first 2 or 3, maybe 4 episodes, is that there's such a claustrophobic tension to them. It's characters who are selling and moving crack. There's no two ways about it. That is what they're doing. Bobby's got a decent family. I can't remember right now where his dad is, but his mum is brilliant. His older brother in the early episodes he's a bit aggressive for reasons that get revealed. God, it's difficult doing this without kind of giving the whole story arc away. But they're not portrayed as street hoodlums at all. They're trying to get by, and that claustrophobic sense is that you very much get the idea that they are trapped into it, that this is one of a very limited number of options. Now, where I live in Ipswich is euphemistically called an up-and-coming area. It used to be in the top 10 list for the most deprived neighbourhoods, but wow, I this is nothing compared to where these guys grow up. It's quite shocking. The deprivation, the lack of investment in the area. I can absolutely see how in the documentary made by, oh my god, I've forgotten his name, your man from Public Enemy, Chuck D. In Chuck D's recent hip hop documentary, there's a big focus on the deprivation of black neighbourhoods being directly caused by political decisions. And if you were to watch the Chuck D documentary, it expresses that in a very good way that I don't have the ability to go into myself, but it's well worth watching. Seeing the Wu-Tang thing is it's very much like seeing that on a day-to-day basis. I mean, right, so first up we've got the guns, then we've got crack being moved, and Bobby's bigger brother Divine is trying to make an empire. And I also thought I'm really skeptical about anything that pops up on Disney, even if it's not made by Disney. And I thought, well, shit, they're trying to do the Breaking Bad arc here, but not starting off with a chap with cancer. They're taking a different angle. But Divine, the RZA's Bobby's older brother, is very much trying to build an empire, and I'm skeptical about that when I first saw it, because Disney has a horrible ability, or horrible almost policy, of looking at what's come before it, taking the popular elements out, and then basically churning it out again. I thought, please don't let this be Breaking Bad in New York. And it's not, but that tension and that claustrophobia that's in Breaking Bad is very much present in the first few episodes. Divine ends up going to prison, and that is when absolutely everything changes. It's one of the things I really like about the way they've structured the story here. By the way, we're on to, I'm talking now, Bobby going to prison is episode 5 or 6. It's quite far in. Very little music. I mean, you can see these guys are into music, especially Bobby. He's constantly creating, and there's quite a lot of conflict between the things he has to do on the street to survive and his passion for making music. And throughout the whole of the first season, his passion for music is very much seen by those around him, apart from his family, those around him, as an obstacle to succeeding. Like a kid playing with a toy that he ought to have grown out of. Nobody is interested, but he's still kind of slogging away. One of the things I really found interesting is I don't intimately know all the members of Wu-Tang Clan. I couldn't tell you more than before watching this, I couldn't tell you more than a few of their names. So in this, when I watched it, I wasn't in the state of mind of trying to pick out, oh, okay, that's Method Man, okay, that's Raekwon, okay, that's Goat-Faced Killer, that's Ghost-Faced Killer. I was just watching a bunch of people. I was almost surprised when I started to see them rapping that those characters were going to be part of the Wu-Tang Clan. So, very surprising. I mean, I found it really stressful, actually. I found watching the first few, the tension is so ratcheted up, and the violence is so acute. There's deaths. I mean, just this, I don't want to say stupid deaths, because it's complex, but frustrating deaths. Characters that die for frustrating reasons. I mean, much later on, there is a scene with a police officer killing someone, and it is one of the most difficult, complex scenes I think I've ever had to watch. It's very, very difficult. This is not a hooray Wu-Tang thing at all, not in the slightest. That being said, there is actually quite a lot of humour in it, in a similar way to Breaking Bad. But again, I have moved on from making that comparison. There is humour because it's such a human interest story. The people around Bobby and all the other characters, God, some of the challenges people are living through in this is so acute. But there's also so much love, and there's so much humour, and not dark humour. It's really not. If you watch the first Wu-Tang video, or the video, I think it was Protect Your Neck was the first one. I apologise to any Wu-Tang fans who are now screaming if I'm wrong. You see that, and it's very aggressive, and the aesthetic of it is, well, now classic and oft imitated, showing the street, showing where they live. It's very real and very gritty, and it's fascinating when you watch the Wu-Tang, the American Saga, just how much love there was behind all it. And I mean, a love for the art, a love for each other eventually. I mean, famously, Wu-Tang, RZA got everyone involved to up their game by pitting them against each other in the studio. You know, they had to watch each other perform. And when one of them performed, they're like, "You get in there and you do better. Then you go in there, you do." And that, in much later episodes, all of that is shown very nicely. I mean, it's cool as shit. I really enjoyed a lot of that. Now, one of the strangely sort of lightly humorous bits in this, for me, is when Bobby's mate, his cousin, gets a record deal. And then through I don't know what, just do you fancy having a pop type thing, he gets a record deal, and he releases the now infamous single "We Love You, Rakim." We love you, Rakim. Does not sound like that, and it's clearly showing in this that RZA, or Bobby as he was then, was being very much taken down a path that he was not interested in. And the motivation for doing it is complex, and you'll have to watch it to kind of get behind that. But the unintentional humour of taking Bobby, who's this incredibly good-looking, very charismatic, quite shy in a way, quite protective of himself, and him being dressed up in a top hat and tails to make the video for "We Love You, Rakim," it's so strange. And he's really protesting it, but he's protesting it at the video shoot. Now, I'm gonna say that must be a bit of artistic impression, because I can't imagine anyone, however cack their record deal is, would turn up for a shoot and not have any idea what the concept or the aesthetic is. So the idea for him being at a shoot going, "What, a top hat?" Again, that's not an impression. "What, a top hat? No, I don't like that, sir. That's not me." is I think unintentionally quite humorous, but it's a fantastic episode. Not least because you've got Bobby making an effort to try and escape from all the terrifying shit going on in his life and around him, and yet he's still got friends turning up to the shoot with guns. And again, one of the unintentionally sort of funny bits in that episode, it's called Labels. It's episode, what are we on now? I don't know what I'm telling you, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Episode 8. Yeah, one of his friends turns up. He's got a beef with one of his other friends, and he pulls a gun. And one of the production staff walking past goes, "Oh, really? Where did you get that from?" And just takes the gun, tries to take the gun off him, going, "Our props department did not authorise guns for this shoot." It's definitely losing something in the retelling, but it's pretty cool. And one of the things I like about this episode, actually, it's almost a bit of light relief compared to what's happening in previous episodes, is that they did a similar thing to Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man, where they kind of remade chunks of the video. As soon as I finished watching this episode, I went straight to YouTube and looked up "We Love You, Rakim." Sorry, "Ooh, We Love You, Rakim," to watch the video, and holy shit, someone put in a lot of work to get that very close to the original there. In fact, the whole of Wu-Tang and American Saga has quite a lot of very pleasing what I'm going to call geek spots, geek moments, where there's a lot of effort being made to show how genuine and how well researched it's partly written by RZA, the whole show is, right down to which type of sampler and keyboards Bobby's using in his basement. And there's again another unintentionally funny bit where Bobby's trying to nick a sampler. Now, samplers now are your phone, or you can get a sampler called a micro granny that's about the size of a pack of fags. Samplers used to be huge. Think the size of a till in an old shop. Massive, big, heavy. And he's trying to shoplift one, and it's not going to fit in his bag. And I'll let you watch it to see how that plays out. So anyway, after, I'm not giving anything away, but after the whole "Ooh, We Love You, Rakim" thing doesn't pan out, I mean, I'm not giving anything away there, because clearly RZA, or Bobby, is not still called Rakim. After that all falls to pieces, we're quickly back into the high tension and violence of of his existence, because a rumour goes out that he got a big advance. I'm not going to just go through this episode by episode, I promise you, but I just wanted to sort of tell you about that bit, because it's a really nice example of the juxtaposition between the success and the absolute crashing back down to earth that just really symbolises pretty much the whole first season. So things get weird, basically, and we start to see, as we go into season 2, we start to see Wu-Tang, as you might recognise them, start to come together. And I'm really pleased that this wasn't brushed over, this wasn't rushed past, because it goes into a lot of detail. The bit that I always want to see as a musician, I was going to say as a struggling musician, but that's mostly struggling to play. As a struggling musician is, right, how did they actually up their game? How did they get noticed? How did the band come together? I want to know the mechanical things of it. And season 2 of Wu-Tang and American Saga is just that. Payback, payback, payback. It gives you all the details. None of it's dull. None of it is boring at all, and it is all crucial to the story. But some of the detail is just unbelievably good. There's an episode, and I'm going to post the video on the website show notes for this episode. There's an episode which has quite a big chunk where RZA is walking. He's walking the viewer through how he creates a track. It's a big chunk of the episode, but I'm just going to post a little bit of it. But it's a big chunk of the episode, down to how he finds the original samples, how he views in his mind the structure, and how he hears the parts of records that he's going to take out and sample. And this is also one of the brilliant bits in this series, where it gets quite high concept. It gets quite surreal. You know, this is not a series which is just people living in I don't want to say the slums, but living in challenging neighbourhoods, being gritty and swearing and shooting and doing drugs. You know, there is that stuff, but there are so many brilliant moments which are quite surreal. For example, a character early on gets killed, and the way they portray the loss of opportunity with one person's death is phenomenally good and moving and kind of entertaining and just great. But it's not done in a It's a Wonderful Life, you know, like that old film kind of way. It's done with some fairly psychedelic effects and some quite wild visuals, and that does pop up a few times throughout the first 2 seasons. So we get to the sampling thing. We get to the band coming together, and then the usual kind of, hey, things are going well, whoa, total trough into things going very, very badly. Then the tension starts to build up. It's quite masterful, actually. I think even if you don't give a shit about hip hop, don't give a shit about Wu-Tang, this would still stand out almost as a historical document. The way some of it's shot, I don't know how they did it. It's absolutely incredible. Well, they spend a lot of money, I assume. But I'm going to wrap this up, because otherwise I'm just going to keep talking and talking and talking. I just wanted to kind of give you a sort of a rundown of why I think this is worth watching. And I think it's worth watching if you don't care about hip-hop. It's a good human interest story. But if you are into hip-hop, and especially if you're into Wu-Tang, this is very rewarding for fans. The detail and the questions that are answered in this, like, how did that come about? Why was that video made that way? How come that person isn't on the first album but is the second? All of that's answered. It is so cool. And there's some of the characters, well, all the actors in this are absolutely brilliant, but I want to give particular props to Ashton Sanders, who plays RZA, or Bobby, who's just, oh god, his whole countenance and his whole broodiness and his whole expression and passion, and it's so good, absolutely wonderful. All the actors in this are, but particularly I think the actor who met the challenge in the biggest way is, oh shit, it's the guy who plays ODB, and I apologise, I'm going to have to look on a screen to see who that is. I think it's Ace and... yeah, it's TJ Adams. Could be wrong. Well, shit, don't come to me for accurate data, whatever you do. But the actor who plays him, what a challenge playing ODB. I mean, even the way you talk has to be so affected. And he's absolutely one of my favourite characters in the whole thing. And he's played just so wonderfully. So good. So, there you go. There's my wrap-up for Wu-Tang and American Saga. Just watch it. Go on. Look up clips. You know, the trailers are pretty decent on YouTube. Just give it a go. But if you do start at the beginning, as you should, just be aware that you're gonna have to just put in the hours, which is a bit like Breaking Bad again. Shit, stop making parallels, Andrew. You're gonna have to put in the hours. It's all good and it's all entertaining and it's all worth watching. But it does take a little while to become noticeably a Wu-Tang thing, to be noticeably a music documentary series. Not documentary, a music rapumentary. Dramatisation. Yeah, it takes a while to become noticeably Wu-Tang, but God, you need the early ones just to get the importance of everything that comes later. Season 3, I'm really looking forward to watching, because at the end of Season 2 is the record deal, the good record deal. And is success, but you don't see it. You literally get a few conversations of, wow, a lot of copies of this record have sold. That's more or less it. And then at the end there's another down tip. So Season 3 I'm really looking forward to, because crafting the build-up story, crafting the origin story of any musician is an easier challenge than showing the success of the story. I watched Rocket Man for the first time a few nights ago, the Elton John story, which I was surprised. I thought it was really good. But that one, again, they gloss over the early days. There's a little bit of like, hey, should we write some songs? Hello, my name's Bernard. It's not Bernard Cribbins, is it? My name's that bloke what wrote the words for Elton John. And then all of a sudden he's massive and coked out of his mind and all that jazz. But so it'll be interesting to see where we go with this, because Season 3 has to start with massive success. And that means that the story has to go in a direction that hasn't even been touched before. You know, the challenge of success doesn't really feature much in the first 2 seasons. There you go, Wu-Tang and American Saga. Go watch it. Let us know what you thought of this episode. We quite like the idea of doing these kind of breakdowns, which are very subjective rather than the objectivity of, for example, the black metal episode that Sam did a little while ago. Just let us know what you think. Rate us. We're starting to kind of build up some listeners now. Get in touch. Oh, we're on socials now. Just look for Beat Motel Zine on Instagram, Facebook or YouTube. Cool stuff. Okay, thanks a lot. I am going to go and drink a cup of coffee. Why am I telling you this? I have no idea.